Welcome to the Northern Business Podcast, a regular discussion with people who lead businesses, employ people and have new ideas to help our economy grow. The Northern Business Podcast is produced by Recognition PR, which serves businesses in different sectors across the country, some of which occasionally contribute to this podcast. We're sponsored by Virtue Motors plc, one of the top automotive retailers in the UK, with a network of dealerships representing some of the world's most popular brands. I'm Graham Robb, and joining us on this edition of the podcast, we have Babar Malik, who started the next phase of his family's chauffeuring business. Niall Ratcliffe runs a marketing firm, Noticed, and Ian Cooper works for an organisation called Futures for All, which supports young people through meaningful work experience opportunities. Welcome all to the Northern Business Podcast. Now, I don't know who to start with, so randomly I'm going to start with you, Babar, because you represent a business that's trading and growing and is probably the newest of the businesses on the podcast today, and it's called Eagle Chauffeuring.
Yeah, Eagle Chauffeuring, yeah.
Now, you're based in the northeast of England, but you're covering the whole of the north. Tell us what the chauffeur service you offer is, and then I'm going to delve into how it all works.
So basically, we just, it's like an upmarket service for businesses. We sort of represent local businesses in the area. We like an image for them when they've got clients visiting. We pick their clients up, and we're the first person they see.
How many cars have you got?
Currently 10 cars.
10 cars. What kind of cars?
All top of the range, ranging from E-Class, V-Class, 7 Series. We've even got the electric
German
vehicles.
Black cars?
Yeah.
Okay, which is what you expect to be chauffeured in, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, tell me about the gestation of this business.
Yeah, so basically we just started this because we thought there was a gap in the market for it.
But your family had a business called Eagle Cars.
Yeah, so my dad had a taxi company years ago which offered a executive side, and all the drivers driven Mercedes, all dressed in shirts and ties. So the idea come from there originally. I was shut down many years ago, was bought out by another taxi firm, Borough Taxis. So I decided to come back in and just totally focus on chauffeuring.
When did you start?
Last year, roughly April, May time.
So not a year.
Not
and you've
even
got
a year.
10 cars on the road.
Yeah.
How many drivers?
So 10 drivers, basically.
10 drivers,
Yeah.
10 cars.
Yeah.
And I have actually, by the way, I should point out, full disclosure, I've used this service and I'm very pleased with it.
Yeah.
But it does appear to me that a chauffeur service is not something that's used by businesses who are in decline. You're not ever going to see the Flotsam and Jetsam of the business community.
No.
You're going to see successful people.
So yeah, people who use us mostly are successful people. So like local businesses that are thriving, like tech businesses going into AI and stuff. Football clubs, we're in the Premiership with teams like Newcastle and Sunderland. So,
and you tend to be in the northeast. So what else is a common denominator of success based on the chatter across the car with your clients?
there's loads of chats. I mean,
you were telling me about inward investors.
Oh yeah, so
people from abroad who are landing and then investing money in the North of England.
Yeah. So you've got new hotels coming up. Like we've been doing a bit of work recently with Hotel Gotham. I think they're foreign investors as well. Yeah. You've got Saudi PIF who've invested in Newcastle Football Club. We're doing a lot of their clients.
Is there a code of practice on chauffeurs? Is what's said in the car stay in the car?
Yeah. Most things have to stay in the car. Most things have to stay in the car. Like, I mean, they tell you. I've been told to switch cameras off, such as like dash cams and stuff, because I don't want certain things recording. So we wouldn't repeat anything like that anyway. It's confidentiality. But...
Very good. Now, I've got other people who do different things, and I've got Niall Ratcliffe. Now, Niall, you have a new business. It's not as new as this. You started during COVID. Noticed.
Yeah.
It's a marketing business. We're in PR in the Northeast, but we like to have our colleagues from different areas on. Tell us about your business and how it's going. What's its gestation first?
Yeah, so the business started, I had quite an unusual start to my career in marketing. I joined an unusual startup in London. And I say it was an unusual startup because it was a marketing agency that didn't market companies, but it marketed people. It was a personal branding agency. So very quickly at 18 or 19, I got thrown in the deep end with like these famous podcasters, footballers, business owners. And I had essentially a one-on-one connection with them as I was running their personal brands. And as I was doing it, we were running different channels for them. So like Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, And I quickly realized the opportunity that these people were having on LinkedIn. And we had people who were just getting massive investments, new clients, all through this channel, which was LinkedIn, which I honestly saw as kind of like a corporate Facebook at the time that no one really seemed to care about. So at the time, I called my brother up, who was actually in finance in Chicago, and I said, look, I think there's a big opportunity here with LinkedIn. I think we can do something. Would you be open to starting a business with me? And he crazily enough said, yes, let's do it. And at the time, we put £9 each into a business bank account. I think we did that to buy the domain for £18. But we put £9 each in, and we said, let's do this. And ironically, we posted about it on LinkedIn, and within about 11 days, we hit a 6-figure run rate. And then over the next 4 years, we've become a multi-million-pound agency and the #1 LinkedIn agency in the UK now.
Well, I'm totally impressed with this, which is, of course, LinkedIn is how we got to know each other. And this discussion is being held live on LinkedIn, because I'm sure you have, but I've got this creator status on LinkedIn. I only half understand it. I think it's something I need to keep doing. But what do you think are the key things that a business, a rank amateur like me, needs to do to get things right on LinkedIn?
It's a great question. So I've got 60,000 followers on LinkedIn now. And a lot of people, when they come to us as a client, they'll see how many followers I have or some of the team have, and they'll be like, God, I just need to go viral and get more followers. And ironically, some of our top performing clients aren't necessarily the ones with the most followers. One thing that I always say is that I think it's a story I learned when we talked to the CEO of Pandora in about 2024. Former CEO of Pandora came to work with us on a new project on LinkedIn. And it was something that he said on the onboarding call that really changed my mindset on this. I said to him, and we did the usual onboarding questions. I thought this is an interesting time to learn. I'm still young. I said, look, he's called Jeremy. I said, Jeremy, when you went in as CEO at Pandora, there must have been so much on the line, a board to impress, finances. It was actually a turnaround job. And I said, what was the first thing you did when you went into Pandora? And he said, I went to Instagram on my phone. I searched for #Pandora. And he said, I just found customers that were posting about our products. And I messaged them and said, why do you buy from us? And ironically, I think that's a lot of people miss about LinkedIn, is the fact that it's not necessarily just a social platform. You don't need followers, but the beauty of LinkedIn is that you can start conversations with people. And I think that's the gap people miss. So the one thing people should be focused on if they're trying to succeed on LinkedIn is how many conversations they're starting every day. And I would be optimizing for conversations started. That includes, posting content so people see it and reach out to you, but also going on the outbound front and reaching out to people in your ICP and starting those conversations there as well.
I think that's a fantastic bit of advice. What is your view on whether a small business that's on its way, I was talking to a small business person recently about them spending money on LinkedIn and becoming a premium member?
It really depends on what your average order value is, but I actually think I think that LinkedIn gives you a set of tools to succeed on LinkedIn. And I think Sales Navigator and being LinkedIn Premium is one of those. One great thing about it is with Sales Navigator, which you're mentioning, which you get with Premium, you can literally go in and build a lead list of your ICP. And my perspective is, I don't know how much it is nowadays, let's say it's £250 a month. If for £250 a month you can't build a 1,000+ person list and reach out to them every day, you couldn't make £250 back. It seems crazy to me. So while I wouldn't invest tens of thousands in ads on LinkedIn if you didn't have the budget, £250 a month seems like a really reasonable investment for any business in any sector to be able to get an ROI on that.
And providing content, we're just talking about this being content on LinkedIn. You're now being part of content on LinkedIn. How important is that?
Massive. There's two different types of that though. So on my personal profile, I got about 10 million impressions last year and it skyrocketed the business. But I think people don't talk about enough is what we call employee generated content. So we push our team to post on LinkedIn and we did about 17 million impressions through our team's content last year. If you think about how much that costs from a media perspective, if you're paying for those views, it would be astronomical. We did it for completely free. All we have is an internal incentives program. We get them a night away when they hit a certain follow count. But yeah, I think massive is content. It's just imagine having the 61 million decision makers on LinkedIn. Imagine having a room of 61 million decision makers and not choosing to throw a few posts up and get yourself in front of them.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. You should always speak up for yourself, because particularly if you're in a business like you or me where you're representing people, if you can't speak up for yourself, you're not going to be able to speak up for them, are you? Very, very interesting. Just before I move off onto another topic, Niall, we talked about LinkedIn, but where do you see the other social platforms in terms of, are there any duffers that you don't think that businesses should be engaging with? I mean, there's lots of social platforms, but you could spend a lot of your time and waste a lot of your time. Are there any that you think should be ignored now?
I hate to give blanket advice, but let me give you one a podcast. Let me give you a favorite lesson I learned from Mr. Stephen Bartlett. A lot of people know Steve now as the host of the Diver CEO. I see him as a master of distribution. I'm good friends with Dom, his old co-founder at Social Chain. And this is a massive lesson he taught me, which was a framework called signal versus noise. And essentially, you can draw it out in a quadrant. I can't do it here. But if you had on your y-axis noise and your x-axis signal, and essentially what it means is what you need to do is look for a channel with really low noise where you can have a really high signal impact. So for example, a really high noise channel right now might be Facebook. There's a lot of people posting on it. Whereas for me, if you look at LinkedIn, it's a really low noise channel. There's, I think, 1% or 3% of people actually post it. It's really, really low noise. And the second thing is how high signal can you have the engagement? So low signal, for example, if I sent you some direct mail, if I sent you a sales letter, it'd be really low signal. I haven't put much effort into target you, so you'd probably throw it in the bin. If I sent you a custom mug with your name on it in a photo, that's really high signal. I've put effort into target you, so you'd be in that bottom quadrant. And what I'm always looking for when it comes to a channel is I'm trying to think about, one, where does my ICP hang out? For me, it's B2B businesses, it's on LinkedIn. And the second thing is, what's the least noise channel with the highest signal where I can target them? And for me, LinkedIn is really, really low noise, and I can find high signal ways through messaging them directly, adding value. It'll be very different for each business, but it's a great framework to look at it through.
Listen to what this guy's saying. He's absolutely right. I completely agree with you. Now, I'm going to, before we move on to Ian, just a little anecdote from you, Babar. I know that you recently had a bit of a sort of little story that went in the media, but also went on social channels, and it was the signal, which Niall is talking about, was about female drivers.
Yeah.
So tell us the experience. Tell us what happened.
Yeah, so we put an ad out basically in the local papers about female drivers.
Which also went on various social channels as a
various social channels. And the reach went out quite fast. So we got 287 applicants for one position, basically. 287 applicants. As far as Kent, Cardiff and Inverness, people applied. There was only 73 from actually the northeast.
Yeah. But 73 was quite good.
73 was quite good, yeah. But as people as young as girls as young as 19-year-old were applying.
And you wouldn't need female chauffeurs because there are some women who want the safety of the female driver.
Yeah. So we've had some requests.
Not that male drivers are necessarily not safe, but
basically just requests for female drivers for female passengers.
Yes.
So that's what brought us to that, yeah.
So there we are. There's an anecdotal bit of evidence for you, Niall, very validating some of this stuff. Look, I'm going to come back to you in a minute, Niall, about something else. Let's bring Ian Cooper in. Ian, nice to speak to you. Thank you for keeping waiting with us. Now, your organisation, which is Futures for All, this has an interesting gestation as well. Tell us how it came about from Speakers for Schools.
So initially, and thanks, Graham, we were founded in 2010 by Robert Peston, ITV's political editor, with the aim of providing young people in state-funded secondary education access to fantastic opportunities delivered through exactly what you said, the charity at the time, which was called Speakers for Schools. So essentially exactly what it said on the tin, sending a range of high-level individuals, shall we say, not necessarily famous, high-level within their fields, into schools and colleges who we work with to offer a talk, to give young people a bit of inspiration, a bit of motivation, and to actually see from outside what can be achieved. And most importantly, no CEO, and we've seen this today, no person, including CEOs, story is all the same. However, when you're in that educational space, I think sometimes you get caught in a bubble in terms of the people you're with, the young people you spend time with all day. So it's showing the young people what is available to them. Because as a teacher, and I've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, you can tell this to these young people all the time, but it resonates differently. And I'm just going to steal Niall's point about low noise, high signal. It resonates differently when it comes from someone external. So we started with the Speakers for Schools side of things. We then in 2016 moved into work experience. So we're the UK's largest social mobility charity, and we're the largest provider of work experience to young people in state-funded secondary education throughout. We do have the Speakers for Schools side of the business, so we still work with around about 1,400 speakers who donate their time and they donate their travel to go and talk in schools and colleges. We have a lot of speakers that will go and speak around the north, but we are UK-wide, and really look to impart some of their knowledge and some of their experience to really show young people what's out there. And then we have our work experience side of it, where we work with a range of businesses. So, for example, we work with around about 289 organisations. So some northern examples: DWF Law, Siemens, Zest, are all organisations we're working with to provide young people with anything from your smaller interaction in terms of the talks from the speakers, all the way to multi-day work experiences, both face-to-face, both virtual and hybrid.
Okay, now those are great examples of the kind of firms that are getting involved. And I always think that when it comes to the kind of firms that we have in the private sector, there are these big corporate firms, and you've just mentioned 3 of them, and there are smaller firms that are in the SME sector. They turn over, the sweet spot, I suppose, is about £20 million a year, although there's the ultra small businesses like my own and Babar's and possibly Niall. We'll ask him in a minute. But, you know, there's Babar with 10 members of the team. I have 12. Niall has 22. To get a work experience in those smaller teams is very difficult because it will take people off the job. It will distract members of the team. What do you say to business owners like myself who would want to contribute, would want to be public spirited, but would find it hard to do so?
Yeah, great question, Graham. I think from on this, I tend to utilise Pareto's principle, so the 80-20 rule, in terms of, and I'm going to go wide for all sizes of businesses, and then I'm going to narrow down on the smaller businesses. So for me, work experience, how people view work experience is 2 weeks. It's predominantly making a tea. It is sat next to one person, exactly what you said, high time, high resource, low impact in terms of reach or numbers. So what we focus on is we focus on supporting companies. If you're on your own, especially if you're an SME, Babar, I'll use your example, right? You're a busy guy, you've got loads going on, you've obviously got a very successful niche business that you're working on. Time to a certain degree and resource is your enemy. So what we try and do, we try and flip it on its side. So instead of 80-90% of your time, resources and effort for probably 5 to 10% of the impact, we take care of the heavy lifting. So we have around about 3,800 secondary education organisation registered with us. 2,200 of those are active. So we have the network. So rather than you having to go to Babar, for example, you've got to go to one school, you've got to engage the teacher, you've got to get in. How many of those kids are actually going to be interested? And that doesn't matter, by the way, what industry you're in. We work with that network. So we have a team of education relationship managers who work across. So work experience isn't 2 weeks. We offer anything from 2 days to 5 days. We also provide support in there. And also, Graham, just going back to your question, with regards to smaller businesses, we actually offer multi-employer placements, which are really popular and really beneficial. So that would be one organisation comes in and does 1 day, second organisation comes in and does day 2, with the golden thread linking everything. So it's not 3 separate interactions, it's 3 different interactions that all link together to give young people experience. And last final point, a lot of people, when they think of work experience, think face-to-face. There is that remote and virtual offering where socioeconomic factors might be an issue. So, for example, now if you live in Wilmslow, it might be difficult to get to Manchester, it might be difficult to get to Liverpool, right? And that's preventing young people getting to their placement. So where transport isn't possible or where they might struggle, it's offering them that virtual and that remote experience. And also these are all live. So in answer to your question, Graham, we can provide that support in terms of resource. It doesn't need to be 2 weeks. And we try and make it as easy as possible, because the easier it is for an organisation to do, the more they're likely to do it.
Okay, I think that's a great and very comprehensive answer. I've been in business a long time, nearly 40 years. And I've tried, because I don't believe you can whinge about the youth of today, which everyone does when they reach my age. You know, the jokes about kids that don't use the telephone and can't spell and all that stuff. You can't whinge and not do anything about it. You've got to be a bit public spirited. And I have tried over the last few years to offer mini internships post 16, under 18, not university internships, mini internships, where I will pay a young person maybe for a week to come in, and they will make some coffee, and they might do some photocopying, if there is such a thing now as doing photocopying, but they will also go out with one of our film crew, and they'll also write a press release and then have it corrected, and they'll also go and see what's happening behind the scenes in our podcast studio and what have you. But the reason I pay them is because I think, and I would only pay the minimum wage, but to a 16 or 17-year-old, that's an adult minimum wage, is still a reasonable amount. But I do want to have a financial transaction with them so that I can actually hold them to account in the nicest possible way. If they're to get there at 9, they have to think about getting there at 9. And if they're going to take a lunch or work a day, then I'd like them to have the experience of having to work a day and be remunerated. What do you think of that? I know that it might put employers off to have to do that, but I've always been on the side of the campaign that wants to pay internships, for instance, in PR.
Yeah, of course. I think that there's two sides to that question. Number one, I think it is great that you're offering that remuneration from the side of it. It is purely down to company policy and the level of support they can offer in terms of budgetary constraints. However, one thing I will say from our how we do things, young people always apply individually. So it's not well-meaning nepotism to a certain degree. It is actually these young people need to go through, they need to do an application on our portal. They need to get their teacher to actually accept it, and then the business needs to accept it. And for me, yes, absolutely, you can do the pay thing, and where possible, it's always great for the young people to earn some money. Absolutely, it is. But also, I think there's something there where organisations can't pay. If you can see the young person is making the effort and wants to do it, they're automatically showing drive, they're showing motivation, they're showing enthusiasm. And I've been with the organisation nearly 5 years now, both from our virtual and our face-to-face side of things. What we do see for companies that pay and don't pay, the level of engagement from our young people is fantastic, and it's quite frankly, I suppose not outstanding. I would actually, I'll hang my colours to the mast on that. It is outstanding with regards to that, because they're making the effort. Where a young person is kind of go and do that because your dad, your mum, your auntie, your uncle have said to do it, different story, different conversation.
Right.
But
Let's put Niall on screen as well, because I'm going to ask Niall this question too. You may, because you're a young business, you may not have had this. Now, forgive any client of mine that is watching at the moment, but one of the things that happens to me every single year is I have a client phone me up, Graham, I've got my daughter or my son, little Timmy or little Jemima, and they want to get into PR or they want to work in the media. Could you give them a week's work experience? And I think one of the greatest sales points for your organisation, Ian, which is the reason I might sign up for it, I probably will, is to say, well, actually, I've signed up with Futures for All. I think they have to go through Futures for All. Because I can never answer it properly. It's always... I mean, I do want to help. Of course, I want to help. Niall, do you have the same thing? Your clients ask for experience?
Yeah, it's ironic. We talk about this with jobs we put up. We've got 250 applicants recently for one of our jobs in under 24 hours. And yeah, we have endless friends, family who say, can you do it? I always think, Graham, maybe I'm not as nice as you in terms of, I think it would cost me so much in terms of time, effort, and resources to take a young person through that right now. That like it feels like, and I love what Ian's talking about in terms of like it feels like there has to be better solutions of people working with you on it, because like if we did this solo, like if you paid me £10,000 to give someone a week's work experience, like it would almost not be worth it. Because of like the change in the team and how I'd have to restructure and actually know one of our managers isn't working on a client project this week. He's babying a 18, 20, whoever it is, through this and like not having the structure around it would be really tough for me.
I think that's,
and it's
I
sad
admire your
as well.
honesty here, Niall, because the truth is you're in a newer business that's growing and you're in a fast growth curve. It's quite clear to me. You've 22 clients in 4 years. You've been going, you're in a fast growth phase. There comes a time, I should imagine, Ian, that you get to a bit more maturity, you settle down, the business is more established, and people like Niall will be able to have that time. And you don't always want the immediate small business to do it. You want to give people a chance to put their business first.
I think for me, from my point of view, I'm all about solving problems of businesses. And what Niall said is, in the nicest possible way, Niall, it's not rare. And I completely hear where you're coming from. For me, it's how can we recognize your demands? You're busy, you need that change, but you also want to give back. So there is an option to do like an hour virtual talk for us. And it's making it easy. So organisations, we've done some work with an organisation in Manchester called Factory Studios, a factory family, who have worked with us. Last year, they did a 1 hour talk. This year, because they understand it, because they know what they are doing, they're now doing work experience with us. And just very quickly, Graham, going back to your point about you're inundated, I hear that. We work with Mondelez, who actually put on their website, and you said this, so it's great that you've got it before I've said it. They put on their website, here's who we do work experience. If you want to do it, contact them. And that makes everybody's life easier because it just funnels it and it stops that well-meaning nepotism because there's that link and it comes back to that 80-20 rule.
It certainly does. Look, Niall, I'm going to leave the last word with you. We're going long today because we've got 3 good speakers, so it's been great talking to everyone. But Niall, you're in marketing, I'm in PR. The economy, for me, has been up the spout for 6 months, and it hasn't been an easy 6 months. And I can speak with some authority, having done it for a long time and had several recessions in my business life. This isn't necessarily officially a recession, but there has been a downturn. I sense it's coming out at the moment, and I think that people in marketing, PR, advertising generally are always first into a downturn and first out. Is there any sense that you've experienced that your inquiries are growing as mine have started? Is it starting to feel a little different in the first couple of weeks of 2026?
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. Let me give you 2 conversations I've had. The first one is I had a conversation with a friend of mine in Manchester who runs a business that's been around for forever. And he said to me, this was before Christmas, he said, for the first time ever, I feel like everything is against me. And his business is doing well, but he was like, the economy seems against me, the politics seems against me from a business perspective, and everything like that. And I felt like I went into Christmas really negative. I actually took the first 2 weeks off I've had in a long time, and we're still growing. And at our stage, it's very easy to grow up 100% year on year, even when you've with or without the economy. But what I will say is that we've had a complete change since January. We've actually signed, I think, 4 clients since the start of the year. Which is not necessarily regular for us in this period. And it's funny that sometimes people think that, why would the economy affect it so much? But it's a mindset thing. And I think the reason you say it affects marketing so much is because the second people feel on a personal level like, oh, I need to be saving, you don't start thinking, let's grow. How can we do that? And I think that's a massive difference between America and UK mindsets as well. UK is very much, from day one, my dad, every month prints out his bank statements and goes through every transaction. And he used to be, who spent £4? And it'd be him, he's forgotten. Who spent £4 on this? And that's what I got brought up with. I got brought up that you look after the money, and when times get tough, you shuffle it away, you keep your wallet tight, and you don't spend any money. I think that's why marketers feel it first. America's very different. But yes, Graham, I do feel like we're on the other side of that, or at least coming out of it, and those marketers are slowly, those wallets, are slowly creeping open, which is always nice.
I think that's great, Niall, and if people like you and I can't express some confidence in our life, then we've got a poor thing going. Thank you very much. Ian, great to speak to you. Futures for All is Ian's charity. It's definitely a very good, worthwhile organisation, and it will get you out of those awkward conversations with your friends in the pub and your relatives if you run a business. Babar, Eagle Chauffeuring, if you're in the north of England and you need a lift or you want to have a great night out and not drink, give him a call. That's it for today's Northern Business Podcast. If you'd like to join us as a guest, feel free to get in touch. It's best via LinkedIn, Graham Robb, or Recognition PR. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks to my assistant producer, Fiona Charlton, and our technical operator, Kieran Graham. Join us next time for the Northern Business Podcast.